I apologize for the delay in getting this video out. As I had mentioned on Twitter, and you should follow me there, at @2bprudential, I had undergone a procedure that would take a bit out of me. For context, so some of you know, is that I'm currently battling renal failure. I'm recovering well, and this experience at this point in my life has definitely had an impact on how I view the world politically and spiritually. For those of you in the know, I do appreciate all of your well wishes. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. This is a follow-up to the last video I had made about localism, and I want to thank the alien robot anthropologist for the suggestion. I'm really happy to be getting audience interaction, so pardon me for gushing over this for just a minute. He had made the following comment. You should make a video on the best local positions to target. I see that many of these only have one person even running, and I don't want to waste my time with a position that doesn't allow for some sort of useful influence, end quote. And that's a great point to make. So this video is going to be my best attempt to see which local positions to run for by ascertaining what impact they have in localities across the country. Again, this video is going to be a bit more US-centric, but as I said the other week, with what I believe to be the coming accelerationism from the establishment, it becomes all the more important to act locally. So I have done my best to identify positions that have an individual impact that anyone can run for, or apply for based on the job qualifications that have the greatest impact on day-to-day life. So I'm going to start from the top down, positions of course that have influence and could have a relatively decent chance of getting elected. I'll go down from federal to state, and then finally local positions. Local offices will have a more detailed breakdowns to their day-to-day responsibilities, but I will also provide the caveat that this is going to be based on my own state of residence, that of Texas. I know that this will not look like or be the same in every city or municipality, but I highly recommend that you use this video as a potential springboard for your own research, and in turn see which offices in your communities affect you the most so you can start getting involved. In addition to this caveat, if you happen to be in the center, or left of center, or just particularly live in a primarily left-leaning area, this is only going to work if you actually participate. Yes, you will be a minority for some time, but it is better to begin to make the necessary changes in our local polity with a single step, rather than be resigned to the idea that things will never change at all. As I had mentioned in the previous aspect of this video, which I'll link in the description, I had worked for years in my local county GOP in a heavily blue and minority majority community. The vote share for Republicans had seen an increase under those increased efforts. If you don't think you can make a difference, then step aside for those who feel like engaging is worthwhile. To begin, I want to start with some of the safest red seats in the current formation of the districts of the United States House of Representatives, given the increased likelihood of elections and previous past elections of Republican candidates to the House. I want to thank Pedro Garcia and Don the Pleb's Discord for giving me some of these districts, but I also did some additional research based on the Cook Political Report and the history of reliable Republican elections and re-election campaigns in various House districts across the country. These districts include some of the following: the Texas 13th Congressional District, Tennessee's 1st Congressional District, California's 4th, Florida's 16th, Ohio's 12th, and the Pennsylvania's 16th Congressional District. These are arguably some of the safest congressional districts for anyone remotely to the right who wants to get involved federally. I will only note that being a federal office, the money, connections, and the know-how to significantly run and engage an effective campaign with the party apparatus will require significant presence in the community, and not to mention a disposable income. It may be difficult to primary and even get to that level right off the bat, but those are areas to seriously consider working within if you're nearby those districts. In addition, it doesn't necessarily require you to run for these offices, but rather holding politicians to account with lobbying, working campaigns, attending county and local state conventions to have a greater impact on the party's platform. Not to burst anyone's bubble, but we are not likely going to be the main character to any major story or political movement. We can only be so lucky. However, it is important to work with the machine just as much as it is to be the man and woman in front of the camera or at the top of the ticket. For without the apparatus, the effectiveness of one's candidacy is basically moot. With that, I would also recommend looking into other government service or GS jobs in departments that are suited to your fitting and can have an impact on your local community. Some of these programs and jobs, whether or not you advocate for their abolition, can still be used to affect your neighborhoods. My best example, based on personal experience from previous work titles I've held, is that of the USDA. The USDA operates food programs for school-aged youth and low-income families known as the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or the CACFP, and the Summer Food Service Program. Nonprofits, schools, child care facilities can all opt to work with this program to distribute food and earn some money to keep and maintain the business running. Considering that this impacts primarily low-income and working-class families, I would encourage you to consider looking into this program and see how it could affect your neighborhood, county, or community. This concludes the federal level for how we can engage locally, and I'm sure there are plenty more at the federal level and jobs to consider, but I want to focus more on state and local offices that affect our day-to-day lives. Not discounting the massive expansion of power that Washington has developed for the last 100 years, but there is still, thankfully, much left over to the states and municipalities expressly left to them from the U.S. Constitution. To begin, I want to look and develop a set of criteria as to gauge the power influence that local government positions may have, either elected or one that can apply for or be appointed that holds over the average citizen. So I've developed the following 3 points of criteria to keep in mind for consideration of the position. All 3 of these points are what I call the trichotomy of civil society, as all 3 are essential for the bare-bones collective to function in any formalized, free society that we would deem acceptable under the current liberal Enlightenment system of government. And for the purposes of this video, I think all 3 hold a very valid and equal weight in dealing with our local communities. Freedom of association and protest or going to church doesn't mean much if the quality of life is diminished by high rates of crime or poor management of parks and wastes. Your income and low taxes doesn't matter if the existing revenue isn't being used properly. But the government won't let you try and redress the issue through formal means, and so on. All 3 rely on one another to make sure the place that you live in, for lack of a better term, isn't a shithole. So 1. Impact on one's livelihood, and an individual's ability to freely associate, make and enter into contracts, and express and redress the issues in the public square, such as rallies, protests, and access to local officials and meetings. This includes access to political, social, and religious participation. 2. Economic freedom. How much of your income can you keep? Taxation. Property taxes, policy on the cost of living such as rent and zoning, business licensure such as occupational licensing, and the determination of business contracts with your local government with RFPs, or picking winners and losers and local economies that only exacerbate inequalities artificially. And finally, 3. Quality of life. Positions that are in charge of or affect the general ease of living in a town or municipality. These items include parks, sewage and waste management, environmental policy, crime and policing, and civil ordinances. With this in mind, let's start at state offices. State legislatures are a great place to work on policy, lobby on behalf of your individual and community interests. The 10th Amendment, or at least what's left of its legal powers anyway, leaves the states primarily in control of its own methods of revenue collection, criminal and civil procedure, business licensure, education policies, and more. Whether you opt to run for the state legislature is up to you, but I will reiterate the importance of lobbying the officials who have more of an impact on your day-to-day life. Other state and government officials to consider that would be your state's secretaries of state, who hold the primary responsibilities over election policy, which if this year is any indication should have more attention and civil pressure placed upon them in the future. In addition, comptrollers of public accounts, such as that in my own home state, is another place to work and lean your efforts into taking into consideration for how tax revenues and how they're distributed as well. This includes the legislature for local boards to determine public-private partnerships and how much money is allocated per the legislature on the state budget. The State Department of Public Safety and other local areas of law enforcement are going to be areas that affect the safety of your community. This may not apply to you individually, but states like Texas, where the positions of the district attorney is usually an elected one, if you have the specialization, consider the role that you may play, especially in an era of activist district attorneys, judges, and having a 2-tiered legal system dependent upon political identification. The legal system, while financially costly to enter, in part due to its education costs, offers a significant avenue of change, especially at the state and local level, by the ability to leverage new precedents into our common law system here in the United States, as well as the UK. With that being said, let me start outlining based on my research which local offices and positions you can run for and do have an impact on your day-to-day lives. Let's start with the role of the county commissioner. This is arguably one of the most important local offices you can run for in relation to the trichotomy of civil society. According to the Municipal Research Services Center, county commissioners have several responsibilities, and I quote, "The powers include budgeting and appropriation of funds for all county activities, building and maintaining of county roads, making and enforcing civil and criminal resolutions and ordinances not in conflict with state law, including those for land use and building construction, supporting and implementing state and federal mandates, executive oversight for all appointed county agencies, construction and maintenance of public buildings, fixing the tax levies for the county and its subordinate jurisdictions, authorizing payments owed by county and auditing of all offices having control over county monies, managing county property, funds, and prosecuting and defending all actions for and against the county." End quote. In some states, this also includes a commissioner's court. The commissioner's court conducts the general business of the county, which consists of a county judge and 4 commissioners, at least here in the state of Texas, that is. With that in mind, I would equate the county commissioner to that of the city councilman, with a larger level of governance. However, both the offices of city council and county commission are very similar, and I would rank them at the same level in regards to the trichotomy and helping you decide which one to run for. So, if you have to choose, both are equally valid. As for the job description, some of these responsibilities include the budget and tax rate being adopted by the Commission, approving for all budgeted purchases in the county, including public-private partnerships, sets the salaries and benefits for county employees, and provides and maintains all for county buildings and facilities and the authority to authorize contracts and those maintenance. This position, normally elected in various counties in the United States, is one of the most important ones to push for in local elections. As I had mentioned earlier, day-to-day life is the most influenced at the local level, and these local positions must be ones to consider. Another position that you must consider, if you have the education and willingness to take on the establishment of your town or municipality, would be the position of city manager. City managers are often politically appointed, however they can also be elected when it comes to the council-manager form of city government. They have more administrative and by extension executive power than that of a mayor in this form of city government. Cities like El Paso, Texas, are an example of the council-manager form of government. These are lucrative, highly political positions wherein they manage the day-to-day affairs of the civil service and the affairs of the city, and in doing so are ripe with corruption. If you want to know what I mean, compare the salary of El Paso's current city manager against the median income of its city. Pays to be well connected. But the responsibilities include some of the following: managing the city budget, overseeing city personnel, addressing questions from the media regarding city council activities, meeting with various heads of departments to identify and resolve issues, making recommendations to the mayor and other city leaders on the variety of issues including budgets, personnel needs, and project costs, ensuring the completion of reports and studies commissioned by elected officials, overseeing important services such as trash pickup and recycling programs, ensuring that the water supplies are safe, working on important economic development projects, and responding to and developing difficult or delicate questions or concerns from the citizens. All of these positions and responsibilities require the connections, education background, and of course, this usually includes a postgraduate degree. A majority in the United States are appointed, however not all, which is why I have it on the list for a potential job to run for in your local elections. Lastly on this list, with those of a major impact aside from working in the civil service, would be the normally elected position of the local school board. This one often gets overlooked, and it's a real shame, in part because we assume education is taken care of at the state level. Now, this is very true. State boards of education are vital, but in terms of local accessibility, they are not an easy position to attain or run for. Your state may not have its board elected, but instead appointed. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't lobby them either. But for your child's education, it is greatly impacted by the day-to-day responsibilities and tasks of your local school board. The local school board is critical in the link between the public schools and its population. School board members serve their communities in quite a few ways. It's supposed to, on paper, look out for its students. Education shouldn't be a line item on the school board's agenda, it should be the only one. School boards are accessible to the public and accountable for the performance of their schools. They're meant to ensure that students get the best education for their tax dollars spent, but that's not always true, which is all the more reason why you should consider running for this position. Some of the major responsibilities of a local school board include the following: employing a superintendent, developing and adopting policies, curriculum, and the budget for the school district, and overseeing the facilities and personnel issues within. If the above-mentioned responsibilities do not wake you up to the importance of this position, then I don't know what to tell you. Getting involved matters, especially when the next generation is at stake in a way that you can affect their day-to-day socialization and understand how they view the world. With those local positions knocked out of the way, I want to stress the importance of getting involved. We need to revitalize political book clubs, public forum debates, and attending the public forums of all aspects of our local government. These are things that we must make time for. We cannot rely on the parasocial relationships to our favorite political creators and spend our days online and on Twitter just to talk about the issues affecting our communities. The more we do to get involved locally ensures that we have the necessary bulwark established against the ever-encroaching ideology that may or may not come into power this January. To conclude, I hope I have given a decent enough outline for the roles and local offices to consider. A big thank you for those in the comments and those who have waited patiently for the second part of this video to come out. I will be uploading regularly now that I've recovered from a recent surgery, and I hope to see you all again in the next video. Again, I ask that if you want me to speak to anybody that you like or who wants to see my videos, I'm going to need your help. Whether that's tweeting or chatting with other creators or groups, I'm all the more eager to get my voice out there along with your support. Until then, I'll see you all next time, and the next video should be out soon.